Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, text 22. Right. Tasyam tritasya shanaso manoscha. Tasyam tritasya shanaso manoscha. Tasyam tritasya shanaso manoscha. Tasyam tritasya. Pritoratagni rasitasya vayo. Toaktagni rasitasya. Pritoratagni rasitasya vayo. Tirtam sudasasya gavam guhasya. Tirtam sudasasya gavam guhasya. Yachrata devasya sa ashisheve. Yachrata devasya sa ashisheve. Tasyam tritasya shanaso manoscha. Pritoratagni rasitasya vayo. Tirtam sudasasya gavam guhasya. Yachrada devasya sa ashisheve. Tasyam tritasya shanaso manoscha. Pritoratagni arsitasya vayo. Tirtam sudasasya gavam guhasya. Yachrada devasya sa ashisheve. Tasyam, on the bank of the river Saraswati. Tritasya, the pilgrimage site named Trita. Ushanasaha, the pilgrimage site named Ushana. Manoho cha, as also of the pilgrimage site named Manu. Prituho, that of Pritu. Atha, thereafter. Agnihe, that of Agni. Asitasya, that of Asita. Vayoho, that of Vayu. Tirtam, places of pilgrimages. Sudasasya, of the name Sudasa. Gavam, that of Go. Guhasya, that of Guha. Yat, thereupon. Shrada Devasya, of the name Shrada Deva. Saha Vidura Ashisheve, duly visited and performed the rituals. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. On the bank of the river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely 1. Trita, 2. Ushana, 3. Manu, 4. Pritu, 5. Agni, 6. Asita, 7. Vayu, 8. Sudasa, 9. Go, 10. Guha, and 11. Shradadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed the rituals. Oh, okay, so there's no purport, so we'll go text 23. Anyani cheha dvichadeva deva kritani nanayatanani vishnu pratyangamukyan kita mandirani yattarshanat Krishnam anusmaranti. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Purport. Human society is divided into 4 social orders of life and 4 spiritual divisions, applying to each and every individual person. This system is called Varnashrama Dharma and has already been discussed in many places in this great literature. The sages or persons who completely devoted themselves to the spiritual upliftment of the entire human society were known as Dvijadeva, the best amongst the twice born. The denizens of superior planets from the moon planet and upwards were known as Devas. Both the Dvijadevas and the Devas always established temples of Lord Vishnu in his various forms, such as Govinda, Madhusudana, Nrsimha, Madhava, Keshava, Narayana, Padmanabha, Parthasarathi, and many others. The Lord expends himself in innumerable forms, but all of them are none different from one another. Lord Vishnu has 4 hands, and each hand holds a particular item, either a conch shell, wheel, club, or lotus flower. Of these 4 emblems, the chakra or wheel is the chief. Lord Krishna, being the original Vishnu form, has only one emblem, namely the wheel, and therefore he is sometimes called the Chakri. The Lord's chakra is the symbol of the power by which the Lord controls the whole manifestation. The tops of Vishnu temples are marked with the symbol of the wheel, so that people may have the chance to see the symbol from a very long distance and at once remember Lord Krishna. The purpose of building very high temples is to give people a chance to see them from a distant place. This system is carried on in India whenever a new temple is constructed, and it appears that it is coming down from a time before recorded history. The foolish propaganda by atheists that temples were constructed only in later days is refuted here, because Vidura visited these temples at least 5,000 years ago. And the temples of Vishnu were in existence long before Vidura visited them. The great sages and demigods never established statues of men or demigods, but they established temples of Vishnu for the benefit of common man, to raise them to the platform of God consciousness. Om Gyanati Mrandasya Gyananchana Shadakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakara Mayam Dadati Svabharantikam Bandiham Shri Guru Shri Utabarkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamshcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamame Hare Priya Anche kalpadarubhashcha kripa sindhyabhevacha patitanam pavanebhya vaishnavebhya namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we're reading about Vidura's pilgrimage after when he took the opportunity of, after being blasphemed and thrown out of the palace by Duryodhana, to finally leave behind all those politics and devote himself to full devotional service by going on pilgrimage, and eventually then, as we'll hear, meet Uddhava and then Maitreya Rishi. So, and we heard in the last several verses description of that in all those places of pilgrimage that that there's not only sacred rivers and lakes and so on, but of course the Lord is personally there in his deity form, in his Archa Vigraha, and it's described that there are thousands of those Archa Vigraha in all those different places of pilgrimage. And so, and all along it's described that he, of course, was always remembering Krishna, worshipping Krishna, performing his rituals, and Yeah, so the verses we came today is 22 and 23. And so in verse 21 actually, it's described that he already heard actually while he was there on pilgrimage about how the Battle of Kurukshetra unfolded, and that all the Kauravas were killed in that battle. And but still he was undisturbed in his devotional service, and we hear in text 22 and 23 from today how he continued on all those different famous places of pilgrimage. In 22 especially we hear about the ones on the bank of the river Sarasvati, 11 in number, which are all listed here. And now in text 23 we heard how those temples are not in general at least, are not a recent creation, but that they have been established or were established long time ago by great sages and demigods. And another point mentioned in the verse, which Prabhupada elaborates on, is also that these temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So that's another nice thing of those temples, that they not only if you go inside that you can see the Lord and get reminded of the Lord, reminded in the immediate sense and reminded in the ultimate sense that we are spirit soul, that our constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord gets revived. But also simply by seeing the temple from a distance. And how is that? It's described here because temples, ancient temples in India, they have are decorated with symbols of the Lord on the outside of the building as well. Famously, as we know in Jagannath Puri, that the temple has on top the main symbol, as we hear in today's purport, the chief of Lord Krishna's symbol, being the chakra, the wheel. And like Prabhupada explains here, how is it that the chakra is considered the chief? He explains here that the Lord's chakra is the symbol of the power by which the Lord controls the whole manifestation. And and this we hear, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita, of course, how devotees don't take it lightly to see the chakra up there, because the pure devotees, they immediately are fully aware that is not any real, any random chakra, but it is the Lord, and thus they immediately their love for God is stimulated, and so we know, like famous devotees like Haridas Thakur, he never went into the temple of Lord Jagannath, but because he considered himself low class, being born of a Muslim family, so that he didn't want to disturb the general social conventions there of entering the temple, which the Hindu community there even now only considers only Hindus would be qualified to go into the temple. So thus, famous devotees like him, or also Sanatana Goswami, they never went into the temple of Lord Jagannath, but they got the same full ecstasy of just as seeing Lord Jagannath himself, simply by seeing his chakra on top of the temple. And even Mahaprabhu himself, on different pastimes, how he broke out into ecstasy simply by seeing the chakra from a distance. And let's see, what shall we go into? There's many different points in these verses we could talk on. One other, as I mentioned, point that Prabhupada is stressing here is that people nowadays many times think that these temples, they are all recently made by Hindus, but they have no idea about how old many of these temples are. They're not only thousands of years old, some are millions of years old. And he cites, of course, first of all, here we see from Bhagavatam itself that Vidura did this pilgrimage 5,000 years ago, so they are definitely older than that. But actually many are even much older. You know, like Jagannath Puri, for example, we know it's the Jagannath was originally installed by Lord Brahma himself, like ages ago. And yeah, but of course, if people in general would accept that, then they would, it would be quite a main evidence or to show like that the Vedas are true, and that like all those temples, that they are not some material thing built by some sentimentalists, but that they are bona fide, that actually the Supreme Lord himself is there in the form of Archa Vigraha, and which would of course be a great challenge to the conception that people have in general. So thus, they sweep it aside, thinking it's recent. The same as with Srimad Bhagavatam itself, they don't accept that it is was in that form compiled or spoken like 5,000 years ago, and actually is, of course, we know, eternal. And actually the river Sarvasati, as we hear in text 22, how Vidura traveled there, that's also another interesting point in that connection, that it was, until a few years ago, believed that this is one so-called evidence that the Vedas are made up, because they always mention about river Sarvasati, but actually nowadays it's not actively there. There's no water flowing. You can't see it easily. But so that's how they say, well, there is no river Sarvasati, so it shows that your scripture is bogus. But actually it was discovered a few years ago with the geologists or whatever, with their technologies, that they could detect the whole, just as it is described in the scriptures, they could detect the whole like riverbed under the, I don't know the details, like maybe under the earth, but they could clearly detect it. So, but of course, again, I mean, that's actually then again a main evidence of that the scriptures are bona fide, but so then people somehow they sweep it aside and don't want to talk about it, because it's too challenging to their worldview and their way of living. But so it is there. There's many, even such evidences, what to speak of, we know. It doesn't need any of that. We know it's those pure devotees, and spoken by them and by the Lord, simply by through parampara, simply by accepting, following it. Everyone himself can verify it, because Bhakti Yoga does work, and it works immediately, and you can detect the effect. But yes, of course, it's the highest to be there in existence, and so most people are not ready for it. We know it's like Prabhupada many times says, you will see many people on the fish market, but you won't see many in a jewelry store, because buying diamonds, because it's precious, and people in general don't have the money in that case, but in this case, people don't have the desire, are not ready for spiritual life. But still, we know the Lord is so merciful that, for example, in the form of his Archa Vigraha, that he does show his mercy, whoever comes somehow in contact with him, even if people don't realize, if they see the Lord, then they get some purification and some little awakening in their heart, which can start their spiritual journey. And so let's maybe briefly talk a few words about the Lord's chakra. I heard in Amarendra Prabhu saying a story about that, about that Sudarshan himself knows that he is the chief symbol of the Lord, and so one time he got a bit proud about that, and and the Lord wanted to, of course, he can't tolerate any seeing any pride even in his devotees, as we know, and so he. I can't remember the full details, and also don't want to spend so much time. But basically, he told Sudarshan that there's this one great devotee who is so dear to me. Can you please call him? And Sudarshan, being puffed up in his pride, was first of all thinking, well, which I'm so dear to you, well, whom else would he call for? But anyway, so then, and who was this devotee? It was Hanuman. So then he called Hanuman, and I don't remember exactly. Like somehow the Lord was in the temple there, or in the palace or something, and when Hanuman, so the Lord in his abode, I'm not sure exactly where it happened, and so when Hanuman would have come and trying to enter the door, then Sudarshan in this state of being with the false pride, thought that he wanted to show Hanuman how great he is, and so he didn't let all the 4 doors there, he expanded, and everywhere he was spinning his chakra, and so he didn't allow Hanuman to enter first, and so then Hanuman humbly prayed to the Lord, "Oh my Lord, Skoldi, I want to see you, but somehow this Sudarshan doesn't allow me. Please help me." And so the Lord then immediately empowered Hanuman, and so he gave him another extra 4 arms, I think, at least 4, or maybe even more, and well, maybe even 8, 4 or 8, so that then Hanuman easily could just pick the Sudarshan chakras and enter the temple. And then when he came before the Lord asked about why are you delayed, and he said, "Oh, I just had to pick a few mosquitoes here," and presented Sudarshan to him, and so in this way Sudarshan's pride was crushed. And further the Lord said, I don't remember the details, but basically then what it comes to is that the Lord knew, like one point why Sudarshan was proud is that he always was on the Lord's right side, on being the best of his paraphernalia. And so then the Lord said, I need to punish you. So he, from that onwards, then he kept him on his left side. And do you remember exactly the point and why he's on top of the temple? In Jagannath Puri? Okay, but anyway, and somehow the story leads also that he then is on top of the Jagannath temple. And that's why Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra oftentimes worshipped along with Sudarshan on the Lord's left side. And so now let's further go into a bit about this topic, pilgrimage, that we've been discussing in the recent verses. Namely, we know that Vidura, he was also, after coming back then, which is described in the first canto, which we discussed a bit already previously, with then how he delivered Dhritarashtra, that he came back for that reason only. And Maharaj Yudhishthira, he knew that Vidura is a pure devotee, that he doesn't come back here for any material comforts, to enjoy the palace life a bit more, but that he only comes for a higher purpose. And so Yudhishthira Maharaj famously glorified Vidura with this verse, Bhagavat Bhagavatas Tirtha Svayam Vipo Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gata Prita. That a verse which is many times quoted, because Yudhishthira Maharaj is glorifying Vidura, that you went to so many places of pilgrimage now, but actually you yourself are a place of pilgrimage. And so much so that wherever you go, you can convert that place into a place of pilgrimage. And how is that so? Because Svantasthena Gadaprita, because in yourself, in your heart, Svantasthena is situated Gadaprita, the Lord who is wielding the club. So, yeah, Yudhishthira much glorified Vidura in that way, to show to others that, of course, first of all, out of his genuine humility and appreciation for Vidura, and also to show others immediately that don't think wrongly about Vidura, that he's coming back here after renouncing, then being weak or anything. No, he's coming as a pure devotee for a higher purpose, to, as it turns out, to deliver Dhritarashtra. And yeah, so this verse, it's quoted quite a few times in Shastra, and one time, which is one of my favorite parts, is by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself to Sanatana Goswami, when Sanatana Goswami meets Mahaprabhu in Varanasi, where he then gets instructed by Lord Chaitanya. And so, don't have much time, so I'll try to be quick. So Sanatana Goswami was, how he came there was, first of all, he actually was imprisoned because Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, both of them, we know they were actually high ministers of the Muslim ruler, the king, and so they had to, Rupa Goswami, for him it was a bit easier, the king was less attached to him than to Sanatana Goswami, so he could drop his post and leave. And when leaving, along with his brother Anupam Malik, who is the father of Srila Jiva Goswami, he sent a message to Sanatana Goswami that I deposited 10,000 gold coins with the local grocer here. Please use that to get released from prison. And we are going to meet Mahaprabhu meanwhile, and please join us. So, and then Sanatana Goswami, it's like such a sweet story, but I can't tell the whole thing. He then somehow gets released and comes eventually to Varanasi, where the Lord is at that time, staying at the house of Chandrasekhara. And the Lord, of course, he knows Sanatana Goswami arrived, and he's waiting there at the doorstep. So he tells Chandrasekhara, please see if there's any devotee outside there. So Chandrasekhara, looks, but Sanatana Goswami at that time, he is not dressed like a Vaishnava. He has long beard, is wearing a woolen blanket given to him by his brother-in-law Srikanta on the way, on the travel. And so Chandrasekhara, he tells the Lord, no, there's no devotee. Then Mahaprabhu asks, is there anyone there? Then Chandrasekhara says, yes, there's one Muslim mendicant. So Mahaprabhu tells him, please ask the Muslim mendicant to come in. So Chandrasekhara goes to Sanatana Goswami and tells, oh Muslim mendicant, please come in, the Lord is calling you. And and Mahaprabhu then, after, of course, Sanatana Goswami falls down at his lotus feet, Mahaprabhu picks him up